There are some really good parenting education programs out there, and then there are some with good intentions but containing misguided information. I have personally attended many myself, or I obtained the instructor's manual from others. Now, having authored my own, the Love Limits and Lessons parenting course, and the instructor training course, I don't hold back on offering my opinion.
Welcome to the Bill Corbett podcast, Creating Cooperative Kids, offering tips for parents interested in increasing the cooperation from their children and teens. Bill is answering questions from his email box, so please feel free to email him at bill@cooperativekids.com. You can also find many of his resources at billcorbettsbooks.com. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, share, and like this podcast. Here is Bill Corbett.
This brings me to one of the first ones I attended way back in 1995. Yeah, I'm dating myself. At the time, I was looking for parenting help as a father, and I was someone who didn't have a positive role model growing up. So I had heard about the Redirecting Children's Behavior course, also known as RCB. They're offering the instructor's training in Tampa, Florida. I was so intrigued by what I read because it was so far from what I had thought parenting was supposed to be that I actually flew down to Tampa from New England and took the course that was created by Catherine Coles. Now, it instantly changed the way I parented my children, and it also enhanced my relationship with the three of them. I couldn't believe the changes that began happening right before my eyes when I started implementing what I had learned in the course. What I love most about this course, and I could go on and on because there's so much good stuff to say, and in fact, I was thinking, what are some drawbacks to this course? And I really couldn't think of any. What I really loved most about it was how I learned the pause before parenting aspect that Catherine had really talked about. In other words, stop before I discipline, stop before I speak, stop before I act, and calm my emotions down and think about what I'm about to do. Now, the course taught me to stop and think about how my emotion in that moment could impact what I'm about to do and how I'm about to parent. It made me realize that in that moment, I was able to see my child's behavior in a different light. Another thing that I loved was what timeout should really look like, because it's not what I had thought. I liked that I had to know when I needed a timeout before my child did. That was so important. Before I could really be effective into sending my child a timeout, I had to have my own timeout. That means not only did I have to have it, I had to recognize and the moments when I needed to take a break. And I learned to say to my kids, Daddy needs a timeout right now, and I would walk away. I would go out on the back deck. I'd go into another room. I'd come back. I would calm myself, and then I'd come back and say, okay, I feel a lot better now, because I had to model that whole aspect. There are moments in every parent's journey when patience feels paper thin. The morning rush, the endless bedtime routine, or the meltdown in the grocery store aisle. You love your child deeply, but in these seconds, your calm starts to fray. That's often when we instinctively send our children to a timeout. But there's something powerful to consider. Before teaching your child about timeouts, you might need to take one yourself. So here's the lesson they're really learning. Children learn far more from what we do than what we say. When we step back and take a deep breath and give ourselves a moment of reset, we show our children what emotional regulation looks like in action. It tells them big feelings are okay. What matters is how we handle them. So when I was sitting through the instructor's training and this whole pause before you parent stuff that Catherine taught, it was like, at first it was like, okay, so what? It's common sense. But it's not common sense. It's common sense in the regards that it makes sense to us, but we don't do it. We don't follow through often enough. We don't make it happen. And that's what's so important about this. So I had like a aha moment. I'm like, oh, all right. But then I would go on to have many more of those moments while I was in the RCB class. So timeouts for parents and children alike aren't about punishment. They're actually about creating a space for calm and connection to return. So, what a parent timeout looks like. Well, your version of a timeout doesn't have to be elaborate or long. It might be stepping onto the porch for a breath of fresh air, sitting quietly in your favorite chair, face in your hands, collecting your thoughts, closing your eyes, and silently reminding yourself, this is hard. I didn't sign up for parenting, or I didn't sign up for how I thought it was going to be, but I can handle it. These moments of pause aren't about giving up. They're about grounding yourself before you guide your child.
I want to take a moment to let our listeners know that Bill just wrote and published a new ebook titled, How to Get Your Child to Own Her Homework. It provides 7 steps for helping your child to step up and take responsibility for making time for and completing their homework. For a limited time, it's available to download for free, so check the show notes for a link to access that ebook. Now, back to the podcast.
Now, the way timeout always looked to me is it's punishment. You send your child to a corner. Of course, when I was a kid, we had the dunce corner in school, and they did that. And so that was how our parents trained us. So when I went through the RCB course, I realized that timeout shouldn't be a bad thing or a bad place. It's all about teaching a child that you're human, you're normal, and right now it's time for you to remove yourself from the situation and get yourself back to a calm situation. The object to effective timeout management is to set it all up in advance. Okay? So you work with your child not at a time when they need it, but actually at a time when they're in a great mood. And you should each have your own timeout space. Now, I know I just said your timeout can look like anything. It can be wherever you need it to be, but it's good to have your own timeout space, even in your bedroom or someplace where you can go to be quiet by yourself to calm down. And set it up with your own space first. Now, a lot of times your child will want to be with you in your timeout space. And I suppose the situation depends on you, whether you want your child to be there. But you have to set it up with your child so that they understand you're not going to talk when you're in your self-quieting space or your timeout space. You're going to be quiet. So you want to role play it. Set the space up, whatever it is to you, your porch, your bedroom, and then role play with them and say, okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm not in a very good mood and mommy's crabby and I might yell. That's when I need to go to my timeout space. So this is how I will go. So you can even create a situation, make believe that you need it. Then you go to your timeout space, let your child go with you, and then just take a minute to sit there quietly without talking. And then snap back into the moment and say, okay, now let's create a self-quieting space for you. And you want to create a space for your child. I know there was a parent that I worked with years ago, and what she actually had done is they removed the door from a useless closet in her home on the first floor. And so they removed the door and they built this little closet space. It was too small for them to actually use, but they set it up in a way that this could become the child's self-quieting space or timeout space. She went out and she bought a big beanbag chair and put it in there. Then she put a poster, I think it was Care Bears or something, on the wall that her child picked out. And notice the importance is the child picked out the poster. And then the child got to pick out some stuffed animals, things she loves to hold. The object here is you create a space that'll make the child feel good, not feel bad about what they did. And then after the space is built up, and I think this mom even put some books, 1 or 2 books in the space, one of the child's favorite books. And then what you do is you set up a role play and say, all right, let's make believe that you need your timeout. Through the role play, the child would run down the hall, fall on the beanbag chair, and pick up a book or a stuffed animal. And then the mother would say, good job, let's try it again. And so you role play as often as you can with the child. Then the first time that occurs where you know the child needs to go to her timeout, she's probably not going to go. Your job is to say, it looks like you need to go to your self-quieting space or to your timeout space. The child, if they're truly having a meltdown, they're not going to cooperate, and they're going to say no. Now, you can try to bring the child to that space, but the only place you can touch them is the middle of the back. See if they'll let you lovingly guide them to that space. If they don't, let it be. And if she is having a meltdown and screaming, then you might need to say, I don't have to listen to this. I'm going to my timeout space. And you remove yourself. So it's going to take some time. It doesn't work like a miracle every time. And then the first time that's going to happen, like what happened with this mom, it took about 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, the child began to have a meltdown, and she screamed at her mom, I'm going to my timeout space. And off she ran down the hall into that little alcove on the hallway. And the mother actually began to cry. She left me a voicemail that it actually worked. So you got to be patient. Eventually, it's going to work. So you got to be calm and patient and work through it. When you model your calmness, your child learns to calm themselves. So try framing timeout in your home as a calm down break. You don't necessarily have to say timeout. In fact, the word timeout has so many negative connotations to it, especially if there are other people in the family that use timeout as a punishment. Of course, you can't control what other people do. All you can control is what you do. So you might say, we both need a minute to cool off. Let's take our time and then we'll talk. Let's go to our timeout spaces and we'll come back when the timer goes off on the stove, and then we'll come back together. So by doing this, you're teaching your child that emotions are temporary. Breaks are healthy. Love and connection remain steady, even when the thunderstorm rolls in of emotion. When tempers flare up, we can still get back to being who we are in our relationship as parent and child. So over time, this builds emotional intelligence in your child and resilience as well, skills that serve children for a lifetime. So I hope that you've seen, this is a new way of seeing timeout. Imagine your child looking through the window and seeing you taking a quiet moment out on the porch, but not in defeat, but instead in a moment of self-care. That's what we want our kids to see is, I am going to my timeout. I'm going to calm down. That image is more powerful than 1,000 lessons. Parenting isn't about perfection. It's about the importance to demonstrate to your children that we are also learning how to navigate life's challenges with grace. You know, some final thoughts here. Before guiding your child through their next timeout, pause and ask yourself, do I need one too? Sometimes the most powerful parenting starts not with control, but with calm.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the Bill Corbett podcast, Creating Cooperative Kids. For more help with parenting situations, check out Bill's website, cooperativekids.com. If you'd like to ask him a question, leave your question in the comments box on this episode or email him at bill@cooperativekids.com. This podcast is the property of Cooperative Kids Publishing. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved.